Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye. How's it going, Chad? Ken?
Good.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Good. Did you send an email with names?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was
I must have missed that.
it was actually in the one, it was sorry, it may have been a lot at once, but it was with the video link and the updated Zoom meeting that I sent out actually last Wednesday night. It did have the 3 names in there. How's it going, Wayne? Georgia?
Hey there, I'll be back. I'll be on camera soon.
Sure, yeah, no worries. Hi, Chris. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, there's Chris. Yeah.
All right, we'll just give it a few more minutes real quick.
Everybody the link this morning. Okay.
Oh, I think we might have lost somebody. Oh, there we go.
Are you there?
Yes, yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I didn't have the volume at first.
Oh, okay.
Sorry I didn't get there last week.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no. Were you able to get access to the videos? Are those working okay?
I tried, honestly, and I couldn't get on it. So
Okay.
I'll try again, but I did try and I couldn't get it. So I
Okay.
don't know if it's probably me, Nick, and not you.
I mean, I'm more than happy to walk you through it if you do want access to them. Just let me know. We can set up a time sometime this week, and I can FaceTime you or something, and we can go right through it.
All right, I'll do. I'm not sure if I get to it or not. Man, I got caught up in this that bad weather we had, where they said it was bad. I don't know if you heard about it up here, but the air quality was horrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we got hit. We got hit with that like 3 weeks ago here in Philadelphia. It was bad.
Yeah, my wife and I both got sick.
Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it's 6:03. I think we're good to start. I started recording. How's it going, Donna? Good to see you. Did you made it to Maine okay? So that's good.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
Took me a
Welcome
while to
back.
get this old computer set up for the Zoom meeting, but now I'm good.
Perfect. Awesome. So I can jump right into actually, does anybody have any updates or any questions or anything that's want to be immediately addressed, or I can just dive into the updates that I have, or
Oh, I do have one thing, Nick. I
Sure.
reached out to no less than 8 or 9 of my neighbors,
awesome.
and unfortunately, I didn't get one response back,
Oh, okay.
which kind of surprised me.
How'd you reach out to him? By email?
I made up a Sabattus
Like
water,
a little page
a little
that was
page.
just private with is 8 or 9
Private.
people.
and I
Yeah.
sent it to all of my friends I'm friends with,
That's here.
and I asked them. I told them what we were doing, a little write up, and send me. So they would send me the email, and I would forward it to you only if they wanted. And nobody.
That's okay. You know, this is a process. You know, usually the first time in these organization like outreach initiatives, they don't really find success. You know, it's like a more of a like a not necessarily a pestering thing, but like just a build up to it. You know,
Yeah.
this is the first contact, which is good. You know, eventually down the road when we have stuff out there and the word is getting around, like you'll have people who they'll run into that are separate from you, and they'll hear something similar, and they'll be like, okay, maybe I should start to check this out, type of thing.
So
I mean,
the one response I did get was it's the snowbirds, it's the summer renters.
Okay, yeah.
we're the ones that are doing, we are the ones that are doing it, because it only begins in May and it goes away in October.
Yeah.
So we're polluting the lake.
Oh, well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So, yeah.
That's not the case at all,
The whole
but
Yeah.
that's his opinion.
The whole situation that we're up against too is the same thing. I've been involved with the snowmobile club for 30+ years. And people are afraid to get involved because they think you're gonna want something from them.
Right.
Yes,
Well,
exactly
they're
right.
gonna lose some of their privileges that they have that maybe not are all above board.
Yeah,
And that's
well,
not it at all.
Yeah.
with the snowmobile club, we've had, anywhere from 50 to 80 members over the years. There's 10% of the people who do all the work.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's typical to this type of an organization. So if we can just keep trying to get the word out and try to get people at least to listen.
Then that's my next step, is to try to do one-on-one with them.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, just that consistency is real key. Like making those contacts, establishing those relationships that I'm sure you already have established to an extent, as neighbors, and that's the whole outreach game, honestly.
Well, another thing that I'm trying to get across to people right now too is the more email addresses that Nick has in his list, at least shows some kind of support. So
Yes.
That's and
even if they're not active, at least we have names.
Exactly, you're right.
And that's also like it's a very minimal and easy sell. I feel like if to tell people like you don't have to be involved. If anything, you just want to stay informed. I mean, it's just
Right.
And it's not like I spam you guys with emails. I hope I've only sent out usually once a week. So like I said, if they ever want to talk to me, feel free. Don't hesitate. You can give them my personal number. You can give them my email. Like anything like that, I can answer any more like research-based questions or scientific questions or anything to the best of my ability. But maybe just having that clarification might be helpful sometimes. But this is certainly a. Oops, sorry, there's somebody in the waiting room. But it's just certainly about this like persistence. It's just establishing those contact points and like and keeping it fresh in the mind, and then just going from there. And there certainly will be failure along the way. I have no doubt about that, but it's about just keeping on and continuing. That's all we can do.
Exactly.
Great work.
I think using email addresses that you've gotten at least through some contact of someone I mean, that's going to be more effective than the way we used to do it by just sending a newsletter to everybody that lived in the 3 towns.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, we're making some progress.
There's this concept in my field of work as well that is about the level of impact of specific stakeholders, and it's interesting to see because and I don't mean to get all like research level on you guys, but institutionally, it is you guys that live around the lake are the most impacted by this problem, and here you are at the front of it, actively participating in doing it, which is exactly what research suggests would happen in a way. So it's really interesting to see.
Maybe downstairs, but not up here.
But it's
Anthony's
great,
making quite the
Oh.
entrance here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're okay.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, sorry, I thought I had the volume.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's good to see our numbers are coming up too for the meeting, so that's great. Chris, I think this is your first meeting, so welcome very much. Thank you very much for participating. Any more questions before we dive into the updates or anything like that? No, anything at all?
Oh, good for me.
Perfect. Awesome. Cool. I can start with my updating. I actually have quite a bit, which was good. It was a real productive week. So I did have that meeting with County Commissioner Garrett Mason. He is the County Commissioner for Sabattus and Wales for Androscoggin County. It was very productive. He seemed very receptive to what we were trying to do. He, in his initial email response to me, recognized the importance of the lake as like a natural capital, like focal point for the region, and that it's potentially very underutilized and, because of its condition. So that was very promising. He also talked to me about potentially making an introduction to somebody at Susan Collins' office and Jerry Golden's office, and talked specifically about the financial capital that will be needed from higher scales of governance. So like, state level and federal level as well. So I think that also plays into kind of our points around maybe incorporating ourselves as like, a nonprofit status, because then we would have access to those things. He did advocate for a specific, like having a municipality or a third party nonprofit that's existing already do it, but I am not within that same mind, and it's specifically because I think you all, as the actual impacted stakeholders, should be the ones doing the decision making here. And I think giving it to like one individual government within the community or municipality might take away some of your own agency. You know what I mean? And I think that still forming this nonprofit or as a nonprofit is definitely the way to go. But we can discuss that later on too. So that was good.
It can get bureaucratic when you get into a government agency.
Very much.
It definitely, and then my concern too was that the best interest for Sabattus might not necessarily be the best interest for Wales. And honestly, this is more. It's not about necessarily the people who are living on Crawley Road in Sabattus, all the way down in the southern part that aren't in the watershed. It's about the watershed, the people who live within the watershed community. And although these ripple effects, do extend out to these areas. I think that, those of you who are especially impacted should have the most agency and power within any type of organization that's dealing with this type of problem. But that's just my opinion of it. And I'd love to hear any of yours as well. But and that's, of course, off in the distance too. So we can come back to that at a later time as well. But just something to think about. And it's good to see a politician, an elected official who is very supportive of that. So
yeah, good.
And that was Garrison Mason, selectman from Sabattus?
That was Garrett Mason. He's a county commissioner for Sabattus and Wales. And I think for Lisbon as well, but they're technically not in the watershed community, so. And he also advised me to reach out to former state rep Tom Martin. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with him.
Yeah, he's on the lake.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he lives on the lake. Yes.
He lives in Green.
Yeah. So I am reaching out to him as well. So I'm just waiting for, if anybody has his contact info, I'd appreciate it. I tried to do a look up online, but he's no longer a state rep. So that information wasn't active for his
I'll
email.
I'll look into that, Nick. I've
Perfect.
been in communication with him. He goes to a lot of the meetings or the workshops and that like the lake stewards have put on, and he is interested in the lake.
He is, and that's what Garrett Mason said. He said that he was actually good friends with him, and that he's had a lot of concern about the pond for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good.
All right, I'll get you that.
Too. Thank you. Yeah. All right, so moving on, the gravel pit and irradiation idea. So I did follow up with Pete Rich, who had originally discussed that in email, on an email chain with me and Donna, and I did forward it to Georgia as well. So his response to my follow-up, and I can share my screen here so you guys can see that as well. I mean, it's a little small, but here we go. You guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, clever.
Let me zoom in a little bit because it's.
My new lens I have put in today isn't helping me read that, Nick.
I know, I'm sorry. Here we go. So I mean, I can summarize it pretty well. Essentially it's not really a very concrete plan yet. It's an idea that stemmed from a couple of other sources and testimonies that he had heard. But he is excited in a way to dive a little bit more deeper into it and potentially, write a paper on it or a report of some kind on it. So I did explain in my response, my initial hesitation to it. It's just like, from my understanding, it was about essentially when the pond was lowered in the fall, it essentially would reveal some gravel aggregate on the pond bed. And the idea was to simultaneously reduce the cost of potentially dredging specific areas. And keep in mind, this would only be small areas at a time and potentially multiple within the lake bed that would be exposed. These test pits could be dug to see if it was also be viable for the businesses that would be doing this gravel pit, because they don't want to just dig in an area that's not lucrative for them as well. My hesitation with that is I see that personally from my perspective as like, kind of facilitating the ecological collapse that we're trying to avoid, at least partially, in order to kind of like continue business as usual with that, like the pond represents a common pool resource for everybody. Like it's not specifically owned, like, by a specific municipality, a person, or anything like that. So I mean, having a private business come in and like, and have, even though it could potentially have a benefit for alleviating some cost of dredging in small areas, they still would be receiving, an economic benefit for use of the common pool resource without any intervention or decision making from the actual stakeholders around the lake. So that was my hesitation with it, and that's what I expressed to him in email, and I did that this morning. So I mean, it's just waiting for a response back. He seems excited just to look into it, which diversity of ideas and thoughts is always a good thing. Like in these types of projects, you should not cut off really any avenue until you absolutely know through data that it would not be beneficial to what you're trying to accomplish. So, I did encourage him and offered my help. If you want to collaborate on writing a paper on this or writing a report, I'd be more than happy to. I love this stuff. And just also that the diversity of ideas in that process is really good for, finding the right fits for possible interventions or solutions. So part of the process, so nothing to like really be alerted about, nothing's in play, nothing's about to happen. And I think that was a good step. So I'll keep you all informed in that as my progression with Pete goes on, and we'll go from there. Any questions or concerns about that or anything?
Nick, I've got, I guess, some concerns. Thanks also for forwarding me that
Sure.
email.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like part of the problem is actually that nobody, quote unquote, owns the pond, right? It's not, doesn't lie within one municipality. So when someone wants to do something, it's almost like they can just do it. They don't have to ask permission, which has kind of been part of the problem leading up to where we are now. I think once a private for-profit entity gets involved, we lose total control. And that's just, forget the environmental issues, because I think there are a lot of those too. But I think it's a bad idea. My question, that was my concern. My question is, what would Shaw Brothers, for example, need to just go do this when the lake is drawn down?
What would they need specifically? I don't know. So like, are you talking about
permission from whom, right? I would hate for someone to kind of go rogue and just start doing that.
I don't think that they would need explicit permission from anybody, maybe besides the municipality of which they're in, because those lines do cross into the pond, I believe. And that is concerning as well. And I agree, like on face value, and I even say in the email, I'm reserving judgment until I understand the dynamics of the plan better, just because that's just usually how I am. But I say, yeah, I am hesitant about it. I don't think it's like a positive because of its business as usual approach. This type of use of the watershed in the common pool resource that it is the type of like usage of it that got us into this situation to begin with, from private businesses like farms and private water treatment from private properties and stuff in the pond as well. So he hasn't responded yet. So, I'm not exactly sure what his opinion on my response is, but I'm sure we'll find out. But
I'm also just wondering if they would have to get permission from, assuming that entity would have to get permission from Green, Wales, or Sabattus, if there's a way for us to kind of monitor whether that request is made.
That's a really good point. I'm not entirely sure how that would work. Do you have any suggestions?
I mean, labor-intensive suggestions. Maybe somebody here knows someone on any of the boards of selectmen that could alert this group if such a request is made.
I definitely know people from Sabattus, and I'm very familiar with the office administrator in the Wales town office as well. I think we could probably establish those connections and just kind of, like, hey, anything involving the pond, could you just loop us in to this organization? I
Which
think
would
that's a
be a
great
good
idea.
idea in general anyway.
Yeah.
Nick, isn't there some, my understanding is like state laws and laws that you can't change or do anything to the lake? Like you can't even put rocks in the water.
I know they have that for other ponds and bodies of water. I'm not well versed on the specifics for Sabattus Pond at this time, but I can certainly look into that.
Well, I looked at it quite a while ago because just and my thing is it's based on size of the lake, and it's like number of square miles, and it qualifies for it. You just can't do things without permit. Like I had to have some riprap in it because the side of my property was eroding, and I had to go to the state to get permission to have it put in. I had to go through all those. You still there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I had to go through all those channels and get permission to have it done so my trees wouldn't fall into the water or my cottage fall into the water. So I'm not sure that somebody could just come in and start backhoeing or dumping gravel or whatever.
Oh, I don't think so either. It's going to be a process for sure, and I imagine it would definitely take some type of DEP thing as well. I mean, especially because the pond is on the priority list and has been for over a decade now. So I don't imagine that they would just be able to come in and just do that. So I mean, there is a lot of stuff I think that would need to happen, but I think the environmental scanning that Georgia suggested is a great idea. And we can start making those contacts now. Local planning boards too. I know Sabattus has one. I'm not entirely sure if Wales does. I mean, they must have some type of code enforcement officer of some kind, I think. And that might have some permits or something. So it might be good to reach out for contacts for those as well. But I can start that process too.
I think code enforcement officer too as well.
Yeah.
They changed.
And Anthony, you had your hand up. Oh, I think you're still muted, Anthony.
You may have discussed this already before, and if so, I apologize, but how do other lakes that are in multiple communities deal with this kind of thing? Where there's multiple towns, and do they form associations, or what do they do? Maybe looking to them to get ideas.
And I absolutely, I have, like, the base part of my research was looking into like those types of situations, and they do form associations. There's a lot of them, and there's this point of polycentric governance that's important for like this type of process. And it's the idea that essentially, these multiple nodes of decision-making bodies is very important for this, the diversity of thought within this process as well. So, but stakeholder groups is essentially, that's something that doesn't really exist. A unified one full of multiple community members and stuff like that does not exist within this watershed. So that was actually my focus and why I started doing what I was doing. So that's essentially what I've done. That background research and that stakeholder group forming is what I focused on. We can certainly go back, and I can also.
But these other lakes have those, is what you're saying.
They
have them, and we need to have them.
Yes. The ones that are successfully trying to address their problems, yes, they do have these stakeholder associations, and that's exactly what I tried to replicate, or I'm trying to replicate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. Awesome.
It would take an interlocal agreement, which is how the dam commission is currently operated, which is not the easiest thing in the world to get, because you got to get consensus from all three towns.
Yeah.
True. And my idea is to, and what I've observed in other literature reviews and stuff is that where does the pressure come to create those types of agreements, those like cross municipality agreements? They come from pressures either from within or from a collection of stakeholders that want something like that. Like the Dam Commission was originally formed back in 2000 because of pressure from just Sabattus having sole control of the dam wasn't working. That stakeholder pressure was what was applied to Green and Wales to form that group commission. Sorry, JDA, I don't see your name. Do you mind introducing yourself?
I don't know if I'm
Oh, you don't
showing-
have the video. I just don't know. Oh,
No,
yeah,
that's
there
fine.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm JD Anderson.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I'm the secretary for the Dam Commission, so
Oh, great. Yeah.
and dealing with a lot of this stuff and as it relates to DEP and DMR and all of the other stuff that we have to go through with the Dam Commission. So yeah, it's a process and doable, especially if you have advocacy from DEP, which, you know, obviously we have a loose relationship with, as we've been, and more so DMR, as we've been trying to get the dam repaired or reconstructed. It's been a tough road to hoe trying to get funding to do it, because we know that the three towns are not interested in putting funding towards it outright. So we're trying to pursue grants and other congressionally directed spending opportunities to get that done. And it's just, I don't know, it's opened my eyes to how difficult this can become. And the interlocal agreement that we operate under is something that took a long time to get. And I'm sure Dan Garrett has talked to you about that in the past, but I think that it would probably require an interlocal agreement to lend the authority to do any work on the lake, because, like as you said, it involves all three towns as stakeholders, and not just the people that live on the lake, but when you're talking about the watershed, and not just the lake or the people that live on the lake, there's a lot of people in the watershed that say, I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, not my problem. Those rich people that live on the lake, they can deal with it. And that's short-sighted, obviously, but that's reality.
I mean, I know Sabattus Water and Sanitation District is certainly feeling the effects of what this watershed and Sabattus Pond has had, what this problem has caused, you know, over the past 50 years. You know, the issues that they're dealing with at the district there, and they're looking at like a $12 to $16 million fix to meet EPA regulations because of the phosphorus levels in the water. So I mean, and that burden is going to be placed on all of the water and sewer district users, which, quite frankly, a lot of them aren't on the lake specifically. You know, it's in town Sabattus, of course, but you know, like these types of things are things that nobody thinks about, you know, 20 years ago in a way. And these things have a tendency to spiral and affect things that you might not even, or people might not even think of. So I definitely have seen that resistance with people within the watershed, not potentially like, or being apathetic to the problem, but I mean, eventually there will be some aspect of the problem that does affect them, specifically if the lake becomes hypoxic. I mean, that is an environmental disaster that would probably affect the region itself, probably all the way down to the Androscoggin in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
JD, you were saying it took a long time to get an interlocal agreement to get permission to be able to proceed with fixing the dam. It was hard to get the three communities on the same page that something had to be done with the dam. Is that, I'm just trying to understand that a little better.
So The interlocal agreement, as I guess Nick indicated, it was done back in, it was 20 something years ago. And what that did is that gave rise to the Dam Commission. Dam Commission didn't exist prior to that. And the Dam Commission has been chartered with operating and maintaining the dam and the water levels associated with the lake to meet a number of different purposes: safety, quality of the water, maintaining the appropriate water levels for breeding wildlife, for the economy in terms of tourism. So there's, a bunch of different things that all came into play there that gave rise to the Dam Commission, to as opposed to having the DEP dictate on an annual basis when you open the dam, when you close the dam, when, whether you can open the dam at all, whether you can close the dam at all. And so it was a very complicated process, and the folks that were involved, 20 something years ago, it took a lot of cajoling of each of the towns, not only the selectmen, but the constituencies, because the selectmen had to reach out to the constituencies. And once they were able to get that, there was like one lone holdout, I think it was Green, but they finally relented and agreed. And so now we operate the dam under this interlocal agreement. And it's worked. It's worked well. There's going to be, if you want to do something to have a watershed partnership or whatever Nick is trying to start here, it's going to take, you're probably going to be it's probably going to be very hard to go from the top down with a hammer. It's going to take a lot of work to get the stakeholders and the constituencies to agree to something like that. And that means that whoever is driving the boat here needs to have some pretty good relationships with the selectmen in all three towns. Very, very good relationships. And they're all reasonable folks, but you got to start somewhere.
I think that it's been clear that Nick is trying very hard to not make this top down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, this is my first interaction at all with what you guys are trying to do. I still don't even know the whole backstory here, so I'm just chiming in from the cheap seats, Donna.
Oh, well, thanks for
no.
coming.
Yeah, absolutely. JD, would you mind talking about the makeup of the board? I had a couple questions this week asking me about the Dam Commission. It is made up of like one representative from each town and then a select member from each town.
Yeah, so it's chartered for 3 from each town, one of which is mandated to be a selectman.
Okay.
And that's so that there's communication between the leadership of each town and the Dam Commission. And the makeup of the Dam Commission is, there's like 4 officers: chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary. It just so happens that the treasurer is Eric Gagnon, who's also the selectman from Wales. The chairman is Jeff Burrill, Sabattus.
Yep, I know him. Yeah.
The vice chairman is Dan Garrett, and then I'm the secretary because I was too dumb to say no. And so, but yeah, so it's been working. We've realized at least since over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since I've been involved, that the Dam Commission does have a lot of authority over the lake level.
Absolutely.
And to meet those purposes that I mentioned earlier. And those criteria were essentially chosen by DMR, or not DMR per se, but DEP.
I mean, it is influenced a lot by local stakeholders as well, correct?
Yeah, but it's a lake, so DEP gets a vote and they get the big vote. So we can do and say all we want, but DEP gets the final vote on a lot of this stuff. Now, they've left the lake alone for quite a while since the interlocal agreement was crafted and the water level order was derived. And because we've done it properly, I guess. I mean, I haven't been involved for that long, but a lot of these guys have.
Yeah.
So it works. So an interlocal agreement, although it's hard to get in the beginning, once it's done, I think that will be valuable for whatever purposes you're trying to achieve here.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, so what I'm hearing you say, JD, is that it's you just sort of giving us the heads up. Your experience is it takes a lot to get something like this done. And we certainly are heading in the right direction. Wanting to get it done is just gonna be a lot of work because it's not easy. You got to convince people, right? It's a
political thing, not a
yeah.
Nobody's going to say, "Oh wow, this is a great idea because it's going to make my property value go up." They're going to say, "You want me to pay what more in taxes?"
Right. It's all about money. Yeah.
It's a simple.
Yeah, right. And like you said, it's short-sighted because I don't want to pay now, even though I may pay much more later on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the hard thing.
Yep.
I'm not a politician,
right. No, you're just telling us your experience that you from the dam.
Well, you might remember that I asked Nick either last meeting or the meeting before, what's in this for you? I was suspicious, just like you're talking about. Maybe it's just human nature, but why do you have this energy to help us out? And he answered that question, JD. You weren't there, but he answered it that it regards his love and family commitment to the area. But Nick, maybe you want to answer that again.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, essentially, I know the impact that climate change is going to have on my generation, my world, my nieces and nephews, potential children, and I know this is something that needs to happen. I understand, and I think even in my presentation to you all as stakeholders, which is recorded, I say this will take decades. This will take hard work. It will take political capital that will need to be spent extensively, and economic capital. I am definitely not a stranger to what is necessary for this, but I mean, it's necessary to have the region be sustainable moving into the future. I mean, we don't know right now the current status of where this pond is within the transition cycle to a hypoxic regime, or a hypoxic or anoxic lake or pond, and that is scary in a way, because we don't know. It can inform our decision makings moving forward because we don't know how close it is, and it also doesn't pinpoint where we should really spend our time and effort. And it's really just about finding that data and cultivating the support. I mean, I understand the political, barriers that are going to be there, and they exist for every type of situation like this. And it's something that I'm confident, I think that we will eventually be able to navigate. And at the end of the day, pursuing an incorporation as a nonprofit for this too also opens up funding opportunities for us. To be able to do things, and the Inflation Reduction Act had over $5 billion to projects just like these, earmarked for allocation of small community projects just like these. So it's definitely something.
JD, what is that about?
Yeah.
Why were you rolling your eyes?
because it's the Inflation Reduction Act and it had more eco stuff in it than inflation reduction. I just thought that's funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
So-
that's what.
So Nick, when you say we don't know this, is that because we can't know it, or that's the information you're trying to get about the current status of the lake?
So like once this organization is formed, and we're still in that preliminary process right now, my advice moving forward, and of course, I suggest we conduct our own resilience assessment as a group with everybody that's involved to get their inputs and stuff like that. But my resilience assessment that I conducted, based on like literature review and everything like that, did say that we need about 27 different data points, consistent data points about the pond to really inform what policy or management intervention we need to do moving forward.
What
honestly,
data points are you talking about? Is it
Sure.
in like
I'll bring up the list.
oxygen and temperature and turbidity and all of those, or what is the?
Yep, I'll bring them up right now. 1 second.
How do we?
I don't want to bore the rest of the group here. I'm
No,
I'm asking dumb questions.
No, it's a good, that's,
Interesting.
Yep, I'm not bored.
Me either.
and the more we hear it, the more we can tell other people about it and hopefully get them to show up and, and be invested in this. And
Yeah, hold on, I'll share my screen so you all
Okay,
can see
so-
too.
It's like 27 points. Is that what you said?
Data points, yeah.
Data points.
Roughly, yes, yeah. All right, you guys see my screen okay?
That's what I was hoping we'd get from all this testing that's been going on, Nick.
That's what I have too. And Georgia, I have that list of people who have not responded back to me. So this is the resilience assessment I conducted for my graduate program. And we will move down. It's like on page 40 something. Here we go.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we need phosphorus levels, erosion rates of the surrounding watershed, precipitation rates, average temperature, fertilizer use within the watershed, consumption levels, local and regional, human development rates and policy, recreational use of the pond rates, algae bloom intensity and frequency, and also fertilizer use frequency and intensity as well. Dissolved oxygen content, and these all have sub measurements as well. So dissolved oxygen is definitely something that we'll need. Eutrophic lakes like Sabattus Pond typically do have already some levels of anoxia within them, like dissolved oxygen content is usually higher at the bottom. But at this time, I don't know, and I've yet to see the data from Bates College and the University of New Hampshire of their buoy that it's been out there for quite a few years and after reaching out, but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Why is that such a mystery? I mean,
Yeah.
they collected the data.
Right.
The
that's
data
my
exists.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were working with, what was it? And I'm losing the acronym, but the original owners of the buoy, which was NSGS or
It was the Geological Service, I think. It was
Yeah.
originally, yeah.
and they apparently turned it over to Bates.
Mhm.
And those data exist. Why we don't have those at our fingertips right now, I don't know. That's a mystery that needs to be solved, but
And
they're
that's
not doing any good to anybody without being published. So
absolutely. And that is like my primary concern with this problem to begin with, is that everything is very siloed. Stakeholders are not involved in this process, which they should be. Specifically from that National Science Foundation grant being conducted by Bates College. And yes, they have done some work with outreach, but I personally don't think it's very extensive or effective. And I mean, I have spoken to Holly, the professor at Bates there, once on the phone, and it was very, very quick. And she said for me to email her, and I haven't received a response back yet. I mean, it is summer, so I totally understand. I would just like really like access to that data because it does have, based on their public information that they have available, it does look like they do collect dissolved oxygen levels and phosphorus levels and some other measurements that are relevant. And we also need measurements on like the taxa that's present, the biodiversity within the pond, because the reduction in that is a key to how close a transition it is to an anoxic state. So it's these things that will inform what paths we go down, and which are the only things that really should form the paths we go down, along with, of course, stakeholder input. Because no matter what, that's also important, because a solution that nobody agrees to is not a solution at all, because nobody will want to implement it in a way.
Hey, Nick, do you, I like to play like the little devil's advocate. Do you suppose that they have information that they don't want us to know because of the quality of the lake?
I don't think particularly it's that in fashion. I don't think it's that way. I think if anything, like my normal assumption for people is usually, and I'm not suggesting that it's malicious on your end, I just assume that, they're probably, it's summer, it's a professor, they're probably not working right now in a way. But I think that it being in academia and having been in academia, I'm sure some of you as well, there is a kind of like, this is my data, even though it was paid for by National Science Foundation grant.
Exactly.
Until it's officially published or reviewed by them, or in an academic journal, they might not essentially want to share it. I don't think that that's what it is. I'm just giving it the benefit of the doubt that, they just haven't reached out to me. But I mean, at this point, I've tried accessing it through the University of New Hampshire. I've tried accessing it through an old graduate student who I had the contact of that directly worked with the buoy. And I've tried accessing it through the actual professor that's in charge of it from Bates. And just haven't gotten there yet.
I don't know if it would, I mean, I can try. When Frankie Sullivan came out here to set up the drones, I was with him and we started over on Gary's property at the point, and that wasn't such a great access. So he came over and did his drone work from my dock. So we kind of got to know each other a little bit. Like, I know his kid's name is Finn, and maybe he would answer me if I tried to get in touch with him to see if we could get any more information. Mostly we want it from Holly and King, isn't that?
Yes, I assume that they have access to the same data because they're both listed on the grant. I don't think that they wouldn't have access to the same data, but I think she's listed as the PI, which is the primary investigator of that grant. So anything would have to go through her.
So Nick, let me ask you, if you get those data, are you going to be able to do anything with it? I mean, is that going to make sense to you? Is it going to give you some sort of pathway to figure out what's going on here that the Bates crew has not been able to, or the NSGS whatever has not been able to discern? I love the fact that you want to pursue that, but will you make sense of it?
Oh, I mean, I can understand it. I've spent the last year and a half looking at the exact same data of different communities. I mean, my education and my skill set is in the management of these social ecological systems, which involves both the science aspect and the organization aspect of stakeholders. And I feel like that's a point that some of these primarily specifically scientists don't have. This organization and outreach and coordination effort.
Okay. All right.
But
So
it will inform the path. It will enlighten some part of the path. I mean, it will accelerate the process a little bit, if we did have access to that data.
If a lot of them would understand it, and that would make them more inclined to be involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, throughout this process, Bates should be involved. I mean, like their scientific expertise is definitely more than mine in this regard. I just want the data to be available to the stakeholders and them to be involved in this process.
Yeah, but the average stakeholder is not going to be able to render the data and make any sense of it. So
that's
we
correct.
need somebody
Why?
that can interpret it.
Yes, that's correct. But why hasn't Bates reached out with the data to stakeholders or informed the municipalities of it or informed the dam commission of it?
Well,
Maybe
because
they don't think
it's
that
a
we
science project
know
to
how.
them.
Yeah,
Maybe they think that we will misinterpret their data.
I doubt that. That's good point, but I doubt it. It's because it's a science project for them and they're going to try to publish it and do something. But you know, they're short-sighted in the sense that the academics don't always realize that, oh, all this data I've been holding on can actually matter to somebody. It's just the way they think. Trust me, I work in that world. So, you know, it takes somebody to say, hey, stop running your analytics and let's transition this to some operational reason why this matters and get it out to a community and make a change. So it's probably just an innocent oversight or miscommunication and all that. I would expect that that's the case. So
I mean,
I can help push that.
I hope so, because I've actually experienced the opposite. It's probably I'm just saying the opposite of what you're saying. I think is they seem when I've seen universities get excited when someone actually cares about some study they're doing, and so maybe it's so you're right. It's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. Sometimes they just let it sit on the shelf, and maybe it's because nobody really cares. But if somebody cares, then they oh, this really means, and it might make a difference. So let's just hope that it's just a communication thing, and that they, you know, when we're able to get in touch with them, that they look at it that way, and you know, they see it.
I'm willing to bet that's probably what the issue is. You know, they're and then again, you know, they're going to run models and analysis on that stuff 6 ways to Sunday and keep peeking and tweaking it to get it perfect. And you don't need perfect. You need, you know, what do the data say, and what can we do with it? And you know, just kind of remind me, one of the things that I think I overheard you guys talking about is, you know, dredging the lake, making it deeper, making it cooler, and that will have an impact on the health of the water. But I think one of the things that everybody keeps missing is the fact that we don't have turnover in this lake. We don't have a full water turnover in this lake like you need to keep a lake healthy. I think this water turns over maybe once a year, where you need about 2.5, and I may be making those numbers up, but you need a better turnover. So if there are other avenues to create that sort of architecture, as opposed to a horrendously expensive dredging operation, I don't know, but it might take some architecture folks that understand how water flows work, and hydrography guys that understand how to make a lake turn over quicker than it does today. You know, there's a million things, and that's what I think this group that you're trying to organize will work out, right?
I just want to add, I think one of the other reasons why no one's seen the results is perhaps there's been no one to send them to. And we talked about this a little bit last week, JD. There hasn't been one association, if you will, or group or project to share the results with. So that's one of the other reasons for organizing.
Oh, good point.
Good point.
Yep. That is a good point. Yep. Or maybe they've got the raw data, but they haven't turned it into something.
And that's
because they don't have a customer yet.
And I mean, that could very well be the case, that their analysis is not done yet. And that's fine. I guess it would just be more or less like best practice from this within my field is engagement with stakeholders at day one. Like that is what needs to happen. And that is not what has happened to an extent. So I think that's where my disconnect is coming from with that. Like that is best practice and has been best practice for ecological management of systems for the last like decade. And that does not seem to have happened. So, yeah.
Point.
All right. Awesome. No, great conversation.
Great. This is
yeah.
a very good conversation tonight. Excellent.
Let's see. So the other updates, I do have the list and outreach of outreach and responses, Georgia, that you had asked for last week. I can send that to you. I have it on the Google Drive, and I'll send you the link to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see. So a person on our email list reached out to me today, or actually, no, it was Anthony. Yeah, Anthony, you had reached out to me a few days ago and asked me about, or sent me that link or that email chain about the removal of the dam in Lisbon. And that sent me down a big rabbit hole, especially with the questions you had asked.
Hopefully a good one.
It's been good so far. I'm still pretty deep in it, but I am conducting right now a literature review of impacts on dam removal on streams and ponds with algae growth. So I should have something preliminary, like a really, base level report by next week. So I should have something to report back to you guys on that.
And remind me who it was that I communicated with. Was it someone from the DEP?
Yeah, I think so. Let me pull it up real quick.
Just for everyone else, basically, I can't even tell you how I found this guy, but when there was a report about work that was going to be on the dam, there was some article that said it was going to affect the lake, and I emailed this person, and again, I don't know how I got their name, and said, when you do this, what's it going to do to our lake? This says it's going to lower the water level, I think it said by 3 feet. We already have a very low level. Isn't that going to cause harm? And his response was, well, no, it's going to make things better. And I'm not sure.
Was it Casey Clark?
But
it was Scott Craig from the
Scott Craig, yeah.
Maine Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office.
Okay.
So I just shared it with Nick and said, look, just FYI, I had this conversation with this guy back in November, and let's.
And just for clarification, this is the dam in Lisbon. So there's 2 other sequential dams above that in Sabattus. So
Well, they took out the one in Lisbon and their last fall.
So
they removed the I can't remember which they named. There's 6 names for each of these dams.
I know, yeah. I have the name right here, actually. Hold on one second.
So they removed the one in Lisbon. They got that totally removed. But if you want to get any information on that, you need to talk to Casey Clark with DMR.
Casey Clark?
Yeah.
Was you talking about draining the lake down 3 feet permanently, or just in the
No.
fall?
No, it was a temporary thing. And I remember him saying it's going to mean more types of fish in our lake. And what hit me was, well, yeah, but we have pike, and pike are just going to eat all those fish. So how is that all going to work?
I can put this in the chat real quick.
The whole intent is to get anadromous fish up into the lake, which is why DMR has been pressuring us, Dam Commission, to put in a fish ladder.
Yeah.
And in our lake. And the primary species that they're worried about or that they want to come into our lake are alewives or herring, blueback herring, alewives. They're part of the herring family. So that's part of this dam reconstruction stuff that we have to do. We have to do that. And I don't know if I'm repeating what the other guys have said before, so just tell me to shut up if you want. But the intent is to get alewives into the lake naturally, as opposed to what they do now, which is truck them in and dump them.
Yeah.
And then they can get out of the lake, but they just can't get into the lake. So they took the one dam out in Lisbon, and that's why, if you remember last fall, the water was very low for a long time. And that was because we were asked by the DMR to keep the lake level low and not open our dam. Or actually it was high, they asked us not to open the dam because they were finishing up those repairs and they didn't want this big rush of water coming from Sabattus. So by the time they finished the work in December and in November, beginning of December, when we finally opened the dam and let the water out, we just barely made it. We would have had a very high water when it froze. So we were working that daily to make sure that they could get their dam work done downstream in Lisbon without us, washing their equipment out of the stream.
Yeah.
It was a cluster.
It's the Upper Town Dam in Lisbon. Is that the dam?
Upper Town Dam,
That
exactly.
now it's been already removed. It has.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that was a state grant.
Mhm.
No, I think it was a federal grant. I think it was a federal grant that got that funding to do that. But they usually pile grant and whatever on top of grant. So it was multiple sources.
I put a picture for reference for anybody in the chat if they want it, of where it was located. You really can't see Sabattus River intertwining through there, but you can kind of see the southern part of Sabattus Pond and where that dam is in Lisbon. Great,
Right.
awesome.
So sorry, I've been talking too much tonight.
Oh, no. I very much appreciate you being here. It's been very insightful. So thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a lot of info.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please keep joining us.
Definitely.
It'll be nice.
All right. So the next part I have is a logging update. So Justin, who emailed me today, he's a member of our email list, and he's been watching our videos too after the fact, which is something that's great, I think. And he gave me a bunch of notes. Oh, he is?
Yeah, sorry, we're just not on camera. Justin.
Oh, okay.
That's him, this guy.
No, absolutely. Awesome. Great that you're here.
Thanks, Nick, for what you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thanks. He gave me some information about the logging activity on Sabattus Mountain right now that's being done by Roy's Logging out of Auburn. And we're kind of unsure right now about if any permits were necessary, anything like that to obtain it. Dan Garrett is also asking Eric Gagnon from the Wales Select Board about this as well. And he is currently looking into that as we speak.
I think it might be Sabattus, Nick. It's before the Wales Town line where it's happening on 132 up on the right. If you're heading towards Monmouth.
Just before the line.
Yeah,
on the road.
it's
Yeah.
in Sabattus.
Yeah.
It is in Sabattus. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I
Yeah,
muted you.
they originally
no.
went off of, I think it's Stonewall Road, right before the town line, but I guess some neighbors up there pitched a fit, so they got an approval to cut that road in off of 132 right before the town line.
Okay.
And then they've just been working back into Sabattus to basically clear cut the whole side of the mountain. I know the video last week, Chad was saying from his dock, and
Oh, it's crazy.
it's quite remarkable when you're out in the lake on a boat and you look back at the mountain. It's amazing.
And if you drive by and look at it, it's devastated.
Yep.
Yeah. And like you had pointed out too, do you want to talk about the erosion control and stuff like that, Justin?
Well, I know we were talking last week about, because it's on the west side of the mountain, you said it is part of the watershed. They have absolutely nothing for erosion control. We were talking about, Dan talked last week on the video about all the rain we had at the beginning of the spring and stuff like that. And even the rain we had today, we had a pretty good downpour go through. All that stuff is just washing right onto 132 or across the street. They have nothing for erosion control, silt fence, anything like that. You can actually see a couple places in the ditch where it looks like some stuff is backed up and they just kind of drove a skidder tire in there to break it up a little bit. But that was one of the questions that I posed to Nick earlier today, was on a logging operation that large, and we're not in the northern Maine woods. We're kind of in a, southern Maine area here. With being part of the watershed, are they not required to have any erosion, silt control, anything like that, especially along a roadway?
So from my understanding of logging operations, they certainly do need to have certain precautions for that type of work. That is definitely something the state should have access to, I imagine. I just don't know who to contact. Is there anybody that potentially might want to look into that and see if the forestry agency might have something like that, or where someone would obtain a permit to try to get that information?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Thank
What
you.
Yeah,
was the- what was
and I
the
can
purpose of
work
the,
with Georgia as well on that.
Okay, great.
what was the purpose of the clear cutting of that?
Yeah,
area?
that's what, yeah.
Are they putting up solar panels? Are they putting up wind farm, or is it just straight logging to get the lumber?
I don't think we know.
If I had to guess, I would say logging to get the lumber. And the only reason I say that is being up on the mountain, especially on the east side, on the other side of Devil's Den. It looks like it was clear cut probably 15 to 25 years ago. It's kind of grown in now with some saplings and some alders, and it's pretty thick. So I would assume it's probably some sort of forest management where they cut one side and now they're waited to cut this side instead of clear cutting the whole mountain. But obviously, whatever they did 20 years ago on the east side of the mountain, I'm sure some rules have changed for what they have to do for silt control and erosion control. And on the back side of that mountain, I think the only thing that runs into it is from the Sabattus side is Mountain Road RV and Beckett Road, I think, which is off of 126. That's pretty much all that runs into it on the backside. I've been all around through there. But on our side, the close proximity to 132, and as Nick said last week, being a direct correlation to the watershed. I mean, all it has to do is go across the road, gets into the field, and then it's just going to wash down into the field, whatever sort of soil and nutrients or whatever that we don't want in the lake.
Wow.
Yeah,
There's probably more to the story, but yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying, but usually they don't clear it. They select, especially today, they selectively choose the appropriate trees to take down so you don't have that blight. And so I'm wondering if there's something else going on, because I just, what comes to my mind is this whole rumor, which is probably true, about putting up a big, huge solar farm on the west side of the lake, up near the Vista, that all that property. I've heard that has been sold is going to have solar panels. I'm curious to see whether there's any relation to that on this side, because that's also facing the same direction. I don't know. Might be unproven.
I haven't heard anything about that. I drive by there 4 or 5 times a day. I could walk up in and talk to one of the guys up in there and find out if they know what's going on. I don't know. I don't know if they know the end result or if they're just in there to clear cut the land.
Well, the loggers probably don't necessarily know, but yeah, I'd be curious.
Well, there should be tax records for the from the town of Sabattus on who owns the property and if it was recently sold to an LLC. I know the Sanborn farm, especially on the whale side, owns a lot of that mountain up off of the Woodrow Road and stuff like that. So I don't know who owns that property in Sabattus.
Yeah, I guess I could talk. That's Sabattus, so I guess I could talk to Tim Kane, find out.
Yeah, there should be records. There should be available records about who owns the property.
Maybe it is just lumber. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean, a solar
interesting.
farm on a western side of a mountain with the sun rising in the east doesn't seem very practical, but that's just my opinion.
True.
Yeah,
It's true, but it's weird around here. Sometimes the weather is crappy in the morning, and then you get sunshine for the latter half of the afternoon, and that a western exposure
I would hit it. Yeah.
makes more sense. I don't know, but so somebody's thought through that.
certainly more to the story.
Somebody
So,
smarter than me.
yeah. So, Georgia and Justin, you guys are going to tackle this one.
Yep.
Perfect. Great.
Great.
Yeah, do you guys need?
Figure that out. That's great.
Chad, question?
I've got a hunting, the Onyx Hunt app. So Martin
Oh, yeah.
Finley owns the Sabattus Mountain, and Ralph Sanborn owns the right half, I guess. And then Mountain View Farm is an additional owner, I think, on the southern side. So the one that I think is getting cut is Martin Finley. And that's
Interesting.
purely going by the On Hunt app. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think if memory serves me with looking through
Careful.
all that,
Careful.
Finley's son lives in Wales off a Castle Road, which goes up on to the kind of the northwest side of the mountain. And then Finley, who might be on the tax record as owning the property, he has quite a place up on the top of the mountain that's been abandoned years ago. It's kind of decrepit, falling down in on itself. At least the garage and the outbuildings are. There is kind of a log cabin that's still up there that last time I was up there was still standing, but I believe that's the name that owns, that was on the tax record, is owning a lot of that property. And when it drops down on the east side of the mountain, it abuts up to that property that comes in off of Beck Drive. They own like 100 acres on the bottom of the mountain. And I think that's over by the by that Mountain Road RV, which is probably what you were talking about there, Mountain View Farm or whatever.
Yeah, that's over by, is that over by Waterman's, I think?
Yeah, across the street from Waterman's is that RV place. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a road that goes in behind there, kind of overgrown now, that comes right to the base of Devil's Den up on the top of the mountain.
Mhm.
I heard there's a coven of witches that lives up there, so we might need to be careful going up there. Check it out.
I tell you what, it's pretty interesting up there. The tractor trailer full of old wooden mannequins is kind of freaky. Yes,
It was probably dumped from the Show Me Museum back when that was a thing. If anybody remembers that. I also heard, like, in the 70s or the 60s and 70s, there was a blind radio guy, DJ, that lived up there in an RV. But I don't know. That was just from one person.
I'll bet Ralph Sanborn is the person that your road was named after, Georgia and Tony.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Muted, Georgia.
I think it was the dad, an older generation of Ralph, but
Yeah.
a Ralph Sanborn nonetheless.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Great. The last thing I have is just the names, just to go over the names that we have suggested. We have a couple of additions from today, from both Anthony and Justin as well. So I'll put this up on my screen, and then we can kind of talk about that and hopefully decide on one. Great. So you guys all see that? So we got 5 possible that people responded back to. Dan said that Dan jumped in about like 7 minutes before the meeting actually started, and he had family over, so he wasn't able to stay for the meeting. But he did say for the Sabattus Pond Watershed Project, the sustain and maintain one. Justin had a good like revision to it, the Sabattus Pond community. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, kind of where I went with that is watching the meeting from last week, and we were talking about all the different Facebook pages that are on the lake. Sabattus Lake fishing information, the Sabattus Lake Marina, Chad, which I didn't even know was a thing until I watched the video last week. Sabattus Pond Partners, Sabattus Pond Yacht and Sailboat Association Rowing Club. I don't even know what that is. But it just sounded, to me, it was a lot of oversaturation, because a lot of the same things are on a lot of the same Facebook pages. So just out of curiosity, before we moved here before I started spending time here 10 years ago, I lived in Wyndham, Sebago Lake. So I just Googled Sebago Lake. They only had like 3 Facebook pages, but one of them was a Sebago Lake community page, and it kind of covered everything about Sebago Lake. So that's why I just thought, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with a name, and I know there were some names thrown out last week that people said it was a mouthful and stuff, was just Sabattus Pond Community. And community covers, right, we're all part of the community, whether we're, property owners, year-round residents, seasonal residents, business owners such as Chad with the marina, and just kind of put everybody under one umbrella, where everybody can see the same information about the pond. And that's kind of what, and like I said, this just kind of came to me today after watching the meetings and just kind of doing some Facebook searches with some different groups and stuff. Instead of adding another Sabattus Pond page, maybe we could incorporate those other groups all under one umbrella, and then we're all in one spot. Everybody's getting the same message. It's a consistent message. That was just a thought.
Yeah, great. Anthony, do you want to talk about your addition?
I think he's walking the dog. Oh, there
sorry.
he is.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Yeah, that had to take the dog out. I actually like what Justin just said, but mine was just trying to create a sense of urgency for people who aren't yet paying attention. And so that's where I came up with saving Sabattus Pond Watershed. It was a sort of shortening of combining 1 and 3. But I like the idea of community. That strikes me as a good idea.
I like it too.
It's not threatening.
Yeah, it's definitely not threatening, and not, I mean, maybe the other ones come across as too alarmist.
Yeah,
but-
alarmist are almost like we would be warriors. And
Yeah, that's exactly right. The saving aspect sounds, and no offense to Anthony, I don't know you. You look bigger than me, and you could probably beat the shit out of me. But I think saving sounds desperate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little worried. I'm a little alarmed, I will admit. But yeah, maybe it will scare people off. Maybe they'll just sell their property and not even want to be a part of trying to save the lake. So we don't want them to do that.
Yeah, we don't want to look desperate like we live in a blighted, nasty community with
community. Yes, right.
My wife brought up a question about, we want to be careful if we just list it as a Sabattus Pond community page. One of the reasons is people might use that for, hey, I'm selling my boat. I'm having a yard sale. I'm having a yard sale at my house next weekend. Please. Yeah, community page and not focused on the pond.
Yeah,
that's just feedback.
I don't think we're so big that a yard sale here or there is going to water down our agenda.
Yeah, because I know I've seen one on there. Sabattus is, I think, green, and somebody is hiring, and they're looking for people.
Oh, that's scam.
Yeah, that.
And I at least on my website, I try to get rid of that.
Yeah,
we'll let them have. We'll let them post their yard sale if they give us part of the proceeds to put towards the work we're trying to get done.
I was looking at that as a fundraising opportunity. If
yes, exactly.
have a good yard sale, we can show up with some information. Yeah.
Well, and to get to your point, sir, about the Facebook page and yard sales and stuff like that, where I got this name from, the community was Sebago Lake Community, and that was one of the things that they specifically had in there was they wanted all encompassing for the lake. They wanted people who live there. They wanted vacationers. They wanted rentals. They wanted, if there was a yard sale, if there was something like that, because it brought more traffic to the website, and it would also make people more, they're gonna, if there's only one website for information, they're going to scroll down and see what else is posted on there. And if they see a post about a watershed study or a link or a Bates College study, or, hey, look at the size of this pike I caught today. It's kind of one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
Is kind of where I was coming from. But, I think that you know, this is good positive discussion to kind of build on what you guys had last week on the meeting.
It's a good point. I appreciate you doing that. And I'll make sure I'm going to post my big pike that I caught yesterday on there. So. No, I think you're very good. You make a very good point.
Just make sure you throw it back in, or you'll get the guys from the Sabattus Lake fishing
Stop
cage
it.
mad.
Oh gosh.
So I didn't realize this is JD. I didn't realize that you guys are trying to come up with a name, but just looking what you've got going on there. So I was in the military for a while, and we had to come up with stupid acronym names for everything. And I was just looking at this saying, you know, if you want to be cheeky, you could say something like SPAWN, Sabattus Pond and Watershed Network, which brings in everything related to it. And then you got a nice little name that you can put on the thing.
That
But-
is cheeky, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, network is kind of more modern than community or whatever, but yeah, it's just a thought. So, but it actually, now that I think about it, it has relation to fish spawning and all that stuff. So,
Right.
but anyway, is this whole organization going to be stifled until you come up with a name, or you know, where do you sit with it?
I mean, we essentially want to, we are having discussions on incorporating into a nonprofit, and with that comes like mission specific stuff. And like, I think we have to maybe consider that too. Like, but-
The branding is important here.
yeah. And like all of these points are excellent, you know, because the word associations with the specific syntax is important
Yes,
for
it
the
is.
branding conversation. I agree. I don't think saving should be in there for that reason. And honestly too, like I've said before, this is like not something that's going to be completed in 5 years. This is going to take decades of a long time. And we had already discussed about removing like management from that thing, which is totally fine with. But like I also don't want to create like a false like idea of like this is a one and done thing, you know, like once we get to this point, this specific designated point, then everything is good. Like eventually, you know, years from now, maintenance of the pond will still need to happen in a way. We hopefully will have policies and things in place that facilitate that. But I mean, it still will require, you know, participation from people to keep and maintain, you know, that type of standard within the pond.
The only comment I would make on that is, and I agree with everything you just said. It's good, but if you at the outset have a 10-year vision for this, nothing's getting done. You need to have short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, and you know the entity needs to exist into perpetuity. But you've got to take the low-hanging fruit and hit something and have some successes so people give a shit about the organization. Otherwise, it's just another government bureaucracy that nobody wants to deal with.
Sorry, go.
Baby, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I have no 10-year plan written out at all, you know, a concept. I mean, my purpose of bringing that up, that this will take decades, is just to make sure I'm very transparent with you all. Like,
Right.
in order for this to be successful, this is going to take a long time. I mean, you're talking about over 75 years of damage done to this pond, and probably plus that with the use of chemical fertilizers spanning back to like the 1930s and 40s. So, I mean, like this is not a problem that's going to be fixed anytime soon. I mean, depending on how severe the pond is itself, I mean, there are case studies where it takes over a century for a pond to transition back into a clear water state. But it's important to lay those foundations now, because I mean, if we start 40 years from now when things are even more severe, I mean, you have even less of a chance and longer time for recovery. So I mean, no 10-year vision plan is written at all. I think that definitely requires input from all of these people and all the stakeholders. But I mean, that was just for transparency. You know, I definitely do not want to present that this is not going to be a long haul type thing. So,
Yeah.
But the clarification of goals in short-term, long-term, and intermediate are certainly on my agenda for the future. So we will definitely get into defining those.
So I feel like the naming, we can like brainstorm and have a great conversation around what we call ourselves. I think the important thing is, and sorry, late to the game, finally had a chance like to put the kids in front of the TV and join this, having lived here for 45 years, is we're all here for the same, we're all here, and this is heartwarming for me. So thank you all, and sorry I'm late to the game, but we'll figure out the name, and I do think the branding matters in the long game and the short game. So if you think through like what we need to do now, next, and later, it's a lot, and I'm just so heartened to see these people here showing up and like, so thank you all.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Annie just had a good point too, is maybe just add network to the Sabattus Pond community. Make it Sabattus Pond Community Network.
Or the other way around, network community.
Now, the community network is basically saying the community is reaching out through this medium. It just seems like it fits.
We need Sabattus Pond Community Network. Are we opposed to watershed being in there? I think because
Yes.
like when we apply to grants and things, that would be the primary focus of a lot of like, you know.
If you don't have watershed in there, you're gonna lose so much support, because watershed is the watershed. It's not just about the people that live on the water.
Right.
So it brings it out of the elite.
And I think there's, I think when people think watershed, they think the people who live on the water. So I would love to brainstorm. Maybe we have a tiger team or like a committee, a subgroup who comes up, or maybe it's just us. But when I think of watershed, I'm like DEP, and that scares me. Like that feels to me like it's important. The watershed is important. That's really what we're trying to do. But how do we get more people who don't live on the water to care?
Mhm.
About Sabattus Pond Watershed Network.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, is it something that we want to decide? We don't have to decide on it today. The only thing, and I think that's important, maybe we've had some great discussions. Like this is going to be a process. This is a very positive like example of how this process is going. I think this has been great. We, although like I've said the last meeting, I am hesitant. I don't want to create a Facebook group and then have people join it and then like have to transfer to another thing. We can wait another week and we can ruminate on this. Is that something that people are okay with?
Yes.
Yes.
I think you need to, I think you guys need to determine whether,
Yeah, we need like a marketing person. Who do we have who's in marketing here? Anyone?
Well,
Anyone
who brought up
that-
branding? Was that Georgia that brought up the word branding?
No, that was the lovely Leslie.
Oh, Leslie, okay, well.
No, but I do think there's an opportunity to like, you know, I have some marketing friends, so maybe, oh, sorry, maybe we can come up with something, because to Nick's point, we don't have to decide today. We're here, and that's the important thing. And then we'll build a brand around this. And I'm just happy to be part of it. And I think no bad ideas. I think we need to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
I agree. Yeah.
Good.
I agree with that too.
For a reference point, for a potential person to do branding, I would definitely suggest looking at the Lake Champlain Basin project in Vermont. It is excellent. They are essentially doing the exact same thing, but on a much larger scale because Lake Champlain is huge. But they have a whole branding and project and essentially everything like that. But yeah, definitely.
I think that's a good point. If it comes to like fundraising or coming up with support or grant writing, that sticks. Lake Champlain. Great. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. Awesome. I do apologize. It is 30 minutes past our meeting time. I want to be
Thanks.
respectful of everybody's time.
Okay.
that was the last thing I have. Is everybody else, are there any updates from anybody else? Donna, I think you were all set from last week. Is that right?
About what?
Yeah, I don't think you had anything to update us from last week. Correct?
No,
Yeah.
no, I was
Um,
curious about this, this clear cutting, and I'm interested to see what goes on with that.
Yeah, Donna, take a ride down 132 towards Monmouth. Before the Wales town line, you'll see it on your right. You'll see it all on your right.
Right across from Access Road.
Nick,
don't-
you can share that picture I took.
Oh, yeah, I can email that out.
Well, Georgia, you know where I am, so if I go out to 132, I take a left?
Oh my gosh, now I forget where you are.
Donna, are you on Dixon Road or where are you?
I'm on Mars Point.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you
go
would
out
take
of
a
Mar-
right.
Go out of
Okay,
Mars
that's
Point,
what I thought. All right, so
take a right,
Yeah.
and go south.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, go south and then it'll be on your left.
On your left.
okay,
right.
I'll take a look. Okay, I've just gotten back here and I've only been out once to the post office, so yeah. Okay, so
If you
yeah.
need me to come pick you up, I'll take you.
See, I love the community.
Yeah, no, this is great. This is excellent. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope to see you all back next week if you're available.
But you want to do it on July 4th?
Oh, no, I don't want to do it on July 4th. So,
Fourth is Tuesday.
yeah.
Oh,
That's
it
right.
is?
Oh, it's Tuesday. Okay. Do we want to have a bye week in case people have plans for the 4th? I don't know. It's up to you all. I think a bye week might be good. Give some time, and we can move from there. If anybody, I definitely suggest continue the personal outreach to your neighbors and friends. If you need any help or to answer any questions, like I said, you can give them my number. You can give them my email, anything like that. So just keep it
But
up
we
if you have any
don't want to scare people, so I shouldn't go around next July 4th and say, enjoy all the fun today, because next year, it's going to be all gone.
Absolutely
We
not.
don't
No,
want to do that, right?
No, I mean, yeah, don't do that, but.
Okay, I won't.
Maybe we'll take that offline at the Cove picnic.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next Wednesday. I'm sorry, I got my calendar mixed up here.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
No, Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday's good. I'm good.
So next Tuesday will be the boat parade.
Yeah, I'm right
Yes.
off my point here, Mason Rock.
Ah, all right.
So
But
we'll see you in the parade, sounds like.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Great.
hope
So
you all
the next-
enjoy. Yeah,
So
next-
next Wednesday, we're gonna have another meeting, or is it gonna be 2 weeks?
we're gonna do 2 weeks in between,
Okay.
just for the holiday and stuff like that. So the
Okay.
next meeting will be the 12th.
Okay.
I'll send out an email tonight, along with the video recording for this one. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Don't hesitate to reach out with any
Thank you.
questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, good
Thanks,
night.
Thanks, Nick.
Good
Bye,
meeting.
all. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
it was good.
oh.